Oh my gosh, so many people.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm allowing people in right now. For those who don't know me, I'm Polly. I'm the founder of Black Women Photographers, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm in Norman, Oklahoma right now. I'd love to know where everyone's at. So if you want to drop in the chat your location before we get started. Seattle, Wichita, Kansas. Oh, I grew up in Kansas. Baltimore, Mexico City, Brooklyn in the house, DC, LA. I love it. I love it. Amazing. Just allowing folks to trickle in before we get started. Shout out to those who have their cameras on. We love to see your faces. It's okay. You don't have to have your camera on, but just makes it more personable. Hello from Queens. Aspen here. Yes. Love it. Texas. Bria, I hope you're doing okay.
Yeah,
Good.
we're better now. It's like 73 degrees outside. You would never know that we just.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad our Texas folks are doing okay and able to make it. Amazing. Pittsburgh. Okay, so as I continue to oh yes, Roxanne, yes. So I actually didn't go to University of Oklahoma. My mom just works there. I went to the University of Oregon. Um, so I'm just hunkered down here before I have to go back to New York. Okay, let's see. So again, thank you all for joining us. So excited to have Nesrin here because our paths briefly crossed when I was in Oregon. I told her this because I saw her photographing a lot of the concerts. Whenever there was a show, she was there. And so I saw her from afar and I'm so excited to see her here today. Let me again allow folks in as they trickle in.
It's such a small world.
It is such a small world because I was like, oh my God. I was like, you know what? I know we met like from afar. And so this is
Yeah.
amazing. This is amazing. Aspen says you live tweet her thoughts.
Thanks, girl. My Twitter is kind of a crazy place.
So the hour goes by very quickly, so I'll just go ahead and get started because I don't want to, I will try to get everyone's questions. So again, if you have a question ahead of time, feel free to drop it in the chat. If not, I'm just gonna hopefully answer your question along the conversation. I'm gonna read Nesrin's bio. I know you are being very humble with your bio, but I'll just get started with what it says on your site. So Nesrin is a 24-year-old music and lifestyle photographer from Portland, Oregon. She has been studying both digital and film photography since she was a freshman in high school. Her passion for live music and sharp images led her to specialize in concert and event photography, as well as portraits and lifestyle shots. She graduated from PSU, which is Portland State University, in 2017 with a BA in sociology, as well as a minor in marketing and advertising. She's found under her pen name Blackprints, where she has amassed over 100,000 followers on Instagram by sharing her life and posting her work. Her portfolio within photography is very wide. So she has worked with brands like Bose, Revlon, Walmart, Coca-Cola, Urban Outfitters, Puma, you name it. She's probably worked with them and she's probably photographed some of your favorite shows and artists. So Nesrin, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited again to have you. Let's see. So I would love to, I know I just read your bio, but but if you like, please talk us to your work from photography, your journey so far. Where did it all start for you?
Yeah. First off, thanks so much for having me and gassing me up like that. Oh my God, so nice of you. Where did it start? I started, I guess I would say, like, I always say, like, my film photography classes in high school, because my high school had a film lab, and that was just something that was really cool to have access to. So I took film photo for like 3 or 4 years in high school. And I just really liked it. And I liked being able to, like, sit in the dark room and like actually see what I was making, and like make my own photos like come to life. And that's where I learned everything I know about like composition and like all of that stuff. And I think starting with film was really cool just because it taught me more of like the technical aspects of photography. Um, and then I was on my high school's yearbook as well. And so that's where I kind of learned more digital stuff. And my yearbook teacher was awesome. And he taught us all how to use Photoshop, InDesign, Lightroom, like everything. And so I think that really kind of gave me a leg up, because then by the time I went to college and I was like, I want to be a freelance photographer, I kind of just knew how to do everything. So I just asked people to shoot with me, and I would kind of like get better at editing and better at all of that stuff. It was all like self-taught though. So my real like photography experience is very like trial and error, fake it till you make it type of thing. But yeah, so I guess that's where it started. What was the rest of the question?
No, that was great. So do you remember like the first time you actually picked up a camera and then the first time you got hired for an assignment?
Yeah, I mean, I've been like having cameras my whole life. My parents were very into like shooting film and stuff. So they would always send me to like summer camp with like disposable cameras and stuff. So I always really liked taking pictures. But I think, yeah, once I was in high school and actually like taking photos for my yearbook, and I was like, okay, this has to be like a good photo. Like, what do I know about composition and editing and like colors? Is that what like will make this look good? And that's where I started kind of looking at photography more critically. First time I got hired, I mean, we could talk about like the real times I got hired, or like the times that my friends paid me $25 to take their senior photos.
You know
So
what? Let's talk about both, because I've been there. I think the hustle with graduate photos is so real.
yeah, well, it was annoying because I wanted to be making money and I wanted to be like doing photography, but when you don't have a portfolio, it's very hard to like get started and kind of catapult yourself into like, I'm a serious photographer and I need to get paid. So yeah, my friends would give me like $20. I would like do their senior photos. They were not good. I owe them all reshoots, but you know, that kind of got me started, and I was making some money. And so that was cool. And then I also started doing brand campaigns once I got a little bit more of a following on Instagram. So that was really cool. And I think like the first real big check, I say big. But my first like actual like photography job for a brand was Coca-Cola, and they paid me like $400 to like shoot something for the
Coca-Cola
yeah.
only?
Yes, because it was like for an Instagram post. And at the time, I didn't
Okay.
have that many followers. But I remember that being like, oh my God, like maybe I could make this into a career. Maybe this could be a job. My mom was like shook to her core that I was being paid to take pictures. So yeah, and from there, here we are. So
That is amazing. Now I have a million follow-up questions. So, okay, talk to us about, you mentioned one thing that I'm sure a lot of folks on here want to know more about is how you actually grow an audience. You are
yeah.
someone who has a very big following on all the platforms. Talk to us about just like how you even started with, your branding,
For sure.
your pen, all of that.
Okay, yeah. So I when I started college, it was kind of during that like Instagram photographer phase. I don't know if a lot of people remember that, but it was like very cool and trendy to be like the Instagram photographer, like taking pictures of a white girl on top of a mountain with her hair blowing in the wind. Like that's the type of photos I was doing, and they were doing very well on Instagram at the time. And it was kind of cool because I was able to make a lot of photographer friends through those types of photos. Instagram used to be kind of more of a community based experience. So yeah, I would make a lot of photographer friends. We would go on road trips. We would capture like crazy content. And that's kind of how I started to grow my Instagram. And then, all the while I was in college, on weekends, I was flying to LA and shooting for like G-Eazy and ASAP Rocky and Black Bear and all these people. And also shooting with celebrities really did help me grow my audience a lot. I think that's part of the reason my audience now is very hit or miss, because I have a lot of fans of certain people and they will only like my photos if it's a picture of that certain person. But that was a big part of growing my audience. And then in 2016, Instagram did reach out to me, and they did this whole interview blog piece on me and put me as like a suggested user. And I thought that was really cool at the time, but it did lead to a huge like influx of followers that are like no longer active on my account. So I kind of do wish I could like get rid of that a little bit. But yeah, I would say the biggest thing in terms of like growing your audience is networking. Like I just met so many interesting people, and that led me to like random jobs and opportunities and experiences that I never anticipated happening. And I know that's kind of like generic advice is like network, but you never know like whose friend might be the next like huge artist, or whose brother or sister or cousin might like need photos taken, and it ends up being like a huge thing. So yeah, that's like led to a lot of random stuff for me, but making a lot of photographer friends and model friends and just being able to like create stuff for fun that ended up doing well on the internet was like a big part of it, honestly.
So did you go and be like, hi, here's my portfolio? Or like, what was it like when did you approach them, or did you get to a point, or I'm sure you got to a point that now they approach you, but initially, how were you approaching these people?
Honestly, most of my, especially like music and celebrity connections that I work with today are like really organic. Everything's like word of mouth. It's kind of a who you know game. It's honestly calculated luck. I think I tweeted something one day and someone was like, "Oh, you should shoot with G-Eazy." And he happened to see it and he was like, "Yeah, we should." And then I like met him at a party like 2 weeks later. He was like, "Oh my God, you're the girl from Twitter." And I was like, hey, bestie. So we're still friends. That was like 8 or 9 years ago. But yeah, he was always posting my stuff, tagging me. And when people were like, "Oh, some of these really big artists work with her and they really like her," it just kind of opens the door to more opportunities. Yeah, you never know. You never know. At this point, usually people are approaching me, but sometimes I still just DM, reach out to people. You shouldn't be afraid to reach out to anyone that you're interested in working with.
You never know. I mean, that
You never
is so
know.
amazing. Like, yeah, I love Twitter, and I feel like everyone needs to have a Twitter. So if you're listening and you do not have a Twitter, sign up for Twitter and shoot your shot, like Nesrin.
People hate Twitter, but it's like my favorite social network just because
It is.
it's more, I don't know, like interactive, personal.
I feel like it's so much easier to get their attention sometimes of whoever
Yeah.
you're trying to reach out to. So I think so that was one of the questions off the bat. Ashley asked, how did you actually get started with working with celebrities? You mentioned one encounter. Would you say that that was just like the turning point for you then working with, G-Eazy? Was he your first artist that you worked with?
I had worked with a couple kind of smaller artists before that. And they had known him or whatever and kind of put me in like this circle of like, oh, well, like these people know her, trust her, work with her, she's cool. And I think that was kind of a turning point though, because then a lot of people, it was way more exposure when G was like posting my photos and stuff. And I had like Black Bear reaching out to me, and I worked with Hoodie Allen and Mod Sun for a really long time. And then I had a couple opportunities to work with like ASAP Rocky and like some cool indie bands and stuff, and just kind of grew from there. Also though, like 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't want to work in like rap and hip hop anymore, and that's when I kind of pivoted and started working with female artists, just because I felt like I had kind of hit this ceiling in a very male dominated industry where it's just like they
Mhm.
weren't appreciating me as much as I knew they should be. I was like, "You're welcome." So I started working with Olivia O'Brien, who was a really good friend of mine. I've been working with her since she was like 15, and obviously now her career has like blown up. She's doing super well. She's a pretty big pop singer, so that was cool. And then I did a tour with Kiara and the Chainsmokers. Yeah, and so just kind of turning my career towards a more like helping women build their cool visuals and doing all of that. Yeah, but it was really helpful to know those people and have them in my network and have them be able to like vouch for me and recommend me for stuff. So yeah.
I mean, you said a lot of the things that I think are great points. You mentioned this earlier, actually just pure networking. You knew her since like you said, 15,
Mhm.
and then it just so happens that her career builds up.
Yeah. And that's how it happened with all of them. Honestly, I was very fortunate enough to meet a lot of people before they were very famous, and that's how you get in, girl. I'm telling you. But also networking in the sense that like I don't know if you guys follow Greg Noir, awesome photographer. I don't know if he's in here right now, but he got me my job at YouTube. He wasn't able to take it, and he ended up recommending me for the job, and they love me, and I've been working with them for like, well, technically 3 years, except it's a pandemic, so we haven't really done much this year. But just stuff like that is really cool. And yeah, network wherever you can. Be super nice to everybody, because you never know who's going to give you the next job.
Yes. Would you say there are any like misconceptions with working with artists that people probably get wrong? Just like what it actually means to work with these artists?
Yeah, I think people really glamorize music photography. They think it's like so like cool and like glamorous, and we're like partying all the time on tour. No, I'm working and I'm tired. I'm so tired all the time. I think it's really fun to like wake up in a new place every day. I don't mind being on a tour bus and living out of a suitcase, but like in reality, like I'm living out of a suitcase for 3 months at a time. It's not cute. It's not fun. I've worn this shirt every single day. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think it's worth it. And music photography is my favorite thing. Wouldn't trade it for the world. I miss touring so much right now. But yeah, I also think a lot of people think it's just like take a good music photo and be like, someone take me on tour. And I was talking about this in another photographer chat the other night, but it's like, when you go on tour with someone, you have to live in a bus with that person for 3 months. And I think it's a lot harder to get some of those jobs than a lot of people think, because they're just like, oh, well, I'm a good photographer, I can go on tour. And I'm like, no, you actually have to have like a good vibe and a good personal relationship with the people on this bus, because they don't really want like a stranger on there and stuff. So if music photography is something you're interested in, building a relationship with an artist for like a couple months is necessary if you're wanting to be on a tour with them.
You have to be able to be personable. They have to like you.
Yeah.
It's not just the photos.
You're a roommate. Yeah.
Let me actually start sharing some of your photos. I'm gonna share my screen. I have a million tabs open. Okay, where should I start? What are your favorite
I don't know. There's a lot on there.
I think it's one, I mean, honestly, I don't even know how you are able to just like figure out what to best present. Like, how do you then begin to start like, what to display? Because you have such a vast portfolio. Let's see, is this the Shawn Mendes?
This is Shawn Mendes. Okay. Yes.
So talk to us about what it took to get this photo. I don't know if you remember this particular show or concert.
Yeah. This was honestly not that long ago. I think it was 2019 in the summer. And my best friend's roommate is one of Sean's managers. And so she was like, hey, want to come shoot the show? And I was like, why not? Like, let's go. Yeah. And so it wasn't a very crowded pit, because I don't think they were letting a lot of people shoot. So I was just kind of right up there. It was really cool.
Yeah. When you're in the pit, obviously I feel like things have changed now, but were you at times the only woman in the pit? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, very frequently the only woman in the pit. I hate to see that person, but sometimes the artists will just let like random like fangirls in the pit, and I'm just like, I feel like I look dumb now. Like, I don't know. But yeah, usually I was the only one actually trying to take pictures there. But things have definitely changed now, and more of the recent shows I went to, there are a lot of girls in the pit, and I do love seeing that. That's Olivia. We were on tour. I think that was in like Minnesota. That's Halsey. Yeah, I have a lot of photos.
I love it. And so when you decided that you wanted to like transition to working with mainly women artists, did you put out feelers with your friends, or was it just like an easy like transition? Was there anything that you really had to do?
Yeah, one of the things I didn't really anticipate when I wanted to work with more female artists is that a lot of them, since they were like small, like I'm obviously not working with like Dua Lipa or Taylor Swift or anybody, but it was hard to find artists who had like a budget and who had management that was like actually willing to hire them a photographer. Like a lot of these girls before I started shooting them didn't have photo at all, or they would
Oh,
do like one photo shoot and just use that for like months and like not have a tour photographer. So working with female artists definitely came with a smaller budget that I had to learn to deal with. Um, it was also kind of hard to get a hold of some people. Like I was friends with Olivia. I met Kiara through another mutual friend. But I frequently reach out to artists all the time, and it's hard to get a response sometimes from some of them, but usually it's their management. So
gotcha. Okay. I love this. What do you shoot with?
Canon 5D Mark IV. I also had a 6D for a couple years too, which I loved.
And do you have a go-to lens?
My go-to lens is the Sigma 35 Art, the 1.4. Absolutely love that lens. For shows and stuff though, I also have a 24 to 70 2.8. I don't really like to use anything much longer than that because I feel like when you're so close in on someone's face using like a 105 or like 200 millimeter, that just kind of takes away from the general ambiance that you're supposed to be photographing. Like I really like messing with the colors and the light and all of that. So usually 85 millimeters, like the longest length I'll use, but yeah.
And when you are photographing a show, like are the photos due that night? Like what's it like, the turnover? Is that like
Yeah.
stressful for you?
Touring turnaround photos are due that night. Just because you have to think of if you're playing a show every single day for like 3 months, you need to get photos out literally immediately or they're no longer relevant. So usually right after the show, everyone's like drinking, like hanging out, like having a good time. And I'm sitting there on my laptop trying to balance my external hard drive on something and export photos. Yeah, so I usually send 30 to 50 photos per night. The artist picks one. We either post that night or in the morning, and then we're like on to the next. I have so many photos that have never seen the light of day just because it was so like go, go, go all the time.
Someone in the chat, sorry, I just forgot your name, asked what was it like shooting I think it was Lollapalooza?
Oh yeah, Lolla is my favorite festival. I love it so much. That's Chicago, best festival ever, hands down. It's like Coachella, but like not as dirty. I just love it. Coachella is so like dirty and dusty, and Lollapalooza is just like fun.
No.
Um, yeah, I've been a couple times. That's my favorite festival, so I try and go every year.
And so you mentioned, your hard drives, like what do you do? Like what's your workflow then for just keeping it all organized? Like, I mean, I'm sure you have a couple of hard drives or how was your
Yeah,
management
several.
system?
The workflow is a little chaotic just because it kind of varies based on whatever I'm doing. So if I am on a tour, I usually take like 2 external hard drives with me that usually last like the 2 or 3 months we're out. And I edit wherever I can. Whenever I balance things on trash cans, it's not cute, it's not glam. When I'm working with YouTube during events, I usually have a production office, which is really nice because I can set up all my stuff and come in throughout the day and do like photo dumps from my memory cards, sort through, edit. Also, all of those photos are due an hour after I take them. So I really have to kind of get on that. And then when I'm at home, I currently kind of do the same thing. I just have my little office set up. I really want to get one of those big desks
Mm-hmm.
so I can back up my smaller ones. I just have one. I'm so sick of like wondering what's on every hard drive and like plugging them all in to like find stuff.
Someone in the chat asked when you're editing and it's the same night turnover, how many edits do you normally do? And with your edits, do you have like presets, editing filters already saved, or what's that like for you, that process?
Yeah, great question. I when I'm editing, so for a show, usually per night, I try and just send 30 to 50 photos, edited, final edits, just because the artist is realistically only going to post 3 or 4. I just want them to have a couple options. And then do I use presets? I do have all of the Visco preset packs for Lightroom. And I know that sounds like a very basic bitch thing, but I've now learned to tweak them all to be way more of like the colors and the lighting and stuff that I like. So I just kind of use those as a very base starting point. At this point, I probably should make my own. but I also
Do you
kind of,
do you have any of your
I,
own? No.
I've learned how to work with them so well now that I'm just like, you know what? This is fine. So
No, we need to see your own. And shout out to Lightroom for this event as well.
yeah, no,
So
love
we can connect you with Lightroom afterwards for sure.
Yeah, would love that. I'm trying to read the chat and see if there's any other questions. Do festivals like Lolla ask you to shoot or do I ask them? So for festivals, what I have done, which is not the normal thing for a lot of photographers, is I usually just go with an artist, and that grants me an artist wristband, media pass, whatever I need, and you don't have to
Mhm.
go through the festival at all, which is just so much smoother, I'm gonna
Mhm.
say. Normally when you apply for a photo pass at like Lolla or Coachella or something, it's jumping through hoops, multiple
Mhm.
things. You have to deal with so many people. It's a lot. And I just don't have the time for that. So I just pull up with the artist in their van, shoot with them, get to shoot backstage with anyone else who's there. And then I can like finesse some other sets. If an artist needs a photographer, they'll be like, hey, can we pay you to come shoot our set too? So yeah, that's how I do it. That's not how you're supposed to do it, but
But when you
you know.
first started, you definitely just showed up, right? And try to
Oh,
find your way.
yes, but like with passes, I would just show up with an artist. Like
Yeah.
G-Eazy would be like, hey, do you want to come to Bumbershoot in Seattle? And I'd be like, yeah. So I would go with him, but then I'd be backstage and I'd have the artist wristband and everything. And everyone else would be like, oh, take my picture, and that's how you
Mhm.
network. You make connections. You fake it till you make it.
I love that. There was another question in the chat that I just forgot. So with the when it comes to the editing and once you send those selects, do you have to wait for them to okay what you can actually post? What's like the permissions like for you actually posting on your own socials and site?
That depends. I mean, most of the time, honestly, there's nothing signed saying that I can't share anything. As you guys probably know, photographers own the rights to anything they shoot unless stated otherwise that you have given away that copyright. So I can post whatever I want. I don't always post whatever I want just because if the artist like it's like I literally hate that picture of myself. Obviously, I'm not gonna just go out of my way to post it. I want to maintain a good relationship with clients and stuff. But like with Olivia, we'll be on tour and we'll go through all the final selects and stuff. And she'll be like, okay, I really like any of these, but just like not these two. And so
Mhm.
I can choose from any of them to post. She can choose from any of them to post, except the two she decided she didn't like. And I think that's kind of fun because usually I try and post something a little bit different than what they posted. So like people can look at their photos and look at my photos and they're getting different content each time. So there's that.
Mhm.
There are also some people I've worked with though, like when I shot Megan Thee Stallion a couple months ago for Spotify, they were like, we need to approve every single image. And I sent them like 75 photos and they approved 3. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
I hate it here. But you know, it is what it is.
Sarah asks, do you incorporate the same type of usage in your rate or does it vary per artist?
Um, Normally the usage is just digital, and so it's built into my rate just for like social media, website, whatever. If they want an album cover, if they want merch, if they want anything else to use the photo for, that's a separate fee that we discuss based on whatever it is they're trying to do with it.
Gotcha. And then obviously we don't have shows right now.
Yeah.
So how have you been able to pivot in the midst of COVID? You're still posting work, you're still getting work. So talk to us about that, just adapting during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I've always shot other stuff. So beyond music photography, I work for YouTube. I do all of their event stuff. I shoot VidCon, YouTube Black, all of the creator summits, everything for their social when they have events. So that's also been like a big part of my job. And even beyond that, I do more branded photo work. If y'all follow me on Instagram, I do be doing ads sometimes because I'm a little bit of an influencer, but I also
Yes.
post, yeah, I also shoot branded content specifically for companies. And so that's stuff I'm not usually posting on my own. That's just, they're sending me product, I'm setting up a shoot or whatever and sending them the content. I also I do a million things, girl. I also do model tests, which are mostly what I'm posting these days, just because that's all there is to shoot. And I do social strategy and consulting for a couple companies. Right now, I work with Halsey on her Black Creators Fund initiative. I don't know if you guys have seen all of that stuff, but
Mhm.
we kind of like took a pause right now because she just launched a makeup line, and that's been like a lot. But yeah, it's been really cool consulting on that and being on like the board for Black Creators Fund, and we're just helping Black artists get their names out there and stuff. It's cool.
I think that is so amazing. One
Yeah.
of the members in the group actually was a recipient of the fund
Oh
last
no
year.
way!
Yeah, Kay, which is like, and I talked to her about her experience, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is life changing."
Yeah, we loved her stuff so much.
Yes. Okay, so we have a lot more questions. I think it was Alyssa. Let me make sure.
There's
Asked.
so many questions. I just opened the chat.
Alyssa asked, how have you ever made a business plan? If not, how do you plan out what you'll do next in your trajectory?
Okay, good question. Again, this is where I'm like less professional than probably most people. I don't really have a business plan, and I think it's very hard to create one when you are a freelancer, just because there will be months when I'm working like 18 jobs and making so much money, and there will be other months where I do like 2 or 3 things and I'm just like chilling, just barely able to pay rent. So hard to come up with a business plan when business looks like that, and especially during COVID. I've been lucky enough to be able to work most of the time, and I've been like fine, but I try not to put all the pressure on myself of like stressing myself out and being like, I need to do this and I need to make this amount and I need to do this, this, and this. I just take what comes at me, and it's
Mhm.
fine.
So another question. So Gisela, I am so sorry. I totally butchered that. Um, this is a good question. So you shot an artist as a fan for the show and then got ghosted afterwards because they ended up using one of the photos as an album cover. Is that right? So how do you negotiate the album cover licenses? You just
If they
mentioned without
took your
getting.
photo and used it as an album cover, you need
Sorry,
to get a
sorry, that's not how that's not what I was saying.
Okay,
Can I
please,
explain?
yeah,
Okay.
please explain.
Yeah. No, basically I had gone to a show and I shot some photos and I posted them on my Instagram and tagged them. And then they reached out like, oh, we love these photos and like we'd love to use them for album stuff. And then I didn't know anything about licensing pricing. So I went to like the Getty calculator and then like proposed something and they were basically like, okay, cool. And then never got back to me ever again.
Oh, I
Um,
mean, that is
Okay.
kind of normal. I'm gonna be honest, in music industry. Like, I feel like a lot of times people are like, we're so interested in working with you, and they never get back to me. But I mean, if it wasn't super long ago, I would just recommend reaching out again and following up. I mean, like, hey, I'd still love to give you guys these photos. I'd still love to work with you. Let me know if this rate works for you. And if not, just like keep in touch. I don't know.
well,
That's
that's kind of the thing is I followed up again like afterwards, and then the album came out, and then I followed up again like, hey, parts on the album, and I've just like never gotten a response. So I'm just kind of like, am I bugging them? Did I pitch
I don't
too
think you're
hard?
bugging that. I send a million emails. I'm like, girl, I will annoy you until you reply. Um,
Love that.
but if you're also not getting a response, they just may have not needed the photos anymore, and they're too lazy to even reply and let you know that, which is really irritating and unprofessional. But maybe that's just all it was.
Mm,
Yeah, I was just like, I think like the first time he reached out on Instagram, I had said like, oh, I guess maybe this much. I think I like lowballed it so hard before I'd actually looked into it. And he also didn't get back to him for like 6 months. And then when they got back was when I was like, okay, here's my actual, I've done research. Great. And then was what I got kind of ghosted on. So that I feel like that's also the context where they're maybe expecting I was gonna say a lot less than I actually did.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So
I'm also music industry people are very cheap. People are constantly trying to lowball me all the time. And if you said one thing that was like a little out of their budget, the imaginary budget that's in their head because they can obviously afford it, they probably were just like, never mind.
Okay, I feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you absolutely should not take it personally. That's, yeah, so normal.
Thank you so much for your question. And please, how do you pronounce your name?
Oh, okay. So the full name is Gisela, but I actually don't use that. I just use that on like professional stuff. I just go by Gisela, which rhymes with Priscilla.
Well, whatever your full name. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
Let's see. Valerie asks, for tours, who usually reaches out to you to go on tour? Is it the artist PR or their manager or tour manager?
Definitely either their manager or tour manager. If you can get in contact with one of those people, they can give you the best idea of like what the tour would look like, what the rates would be, all of that stuff. I don't recommend reaching out to just the artist unless you personally know them and they're like, hey, like I really want you to come, like here's my manager's number or something. But also if you're just looking to get started shooting shows and stuff, what I really recommend is reaching out to local venues in your area and just being like, hi, can I come take some pictures of this show? And usually they can just give you a photo pass. Sometimes they ask for like the rights to the images to share on the venue's social media or something, but that's like a really good way to get your like in and just kind of start taking photos, getting a portfolio set up. So when you do reach out to an artist management or something, you have something to show them. Yeah.
Very smart. So Sherry asks, have artists slash management ever asked you to edit after you delivered the final photos? Did you charge for your extra time?
Usually no. I normally have only had that request when it's like video stuff and they want stuff like cut differently or like color edited a little differently. Normally though, when I'm just editing and delivering photos, they like them. If there's something somebody doesn't like, I always give them the opportunity to Facetune it if they are uncomfortable with how they look in the photo. But I don't think I've ever had an ask to like re-edit like a batch, like, you know, filter and color and everything wise. Yeah.
And then she also asks, where does your handle Blackprints come from?
Oh, great question. I get this all the time. Okay, back in the day, I got my like internet start on Tumblr, and I was like one of those kids that would like hoard good Tumblr usernames and like try and like sell them to other people. And I really wanted blueprints, like the blueprints of a building, because I was like, ooh, that'd be so cool. Because the thing was to have like a good like one word username, and it was like blueprints isn't available, but would you like black prints? And I was like, sure, why not? And I just saved it forever. And then when I started posting my photography, that's the account that I started using. And it just stuck. And here we are, and I can never change it. So yeah.
That's amazing. Do people actually call you Blackprints, or do people know?
Oh, all the time. When people come up to me in public, they're like Black Prints. And I'm like, hello, I'm Nesrin. It's so good to meet you.
At least you handle it very well.
Yeah.
So another question I have for you, because I don't see a lot of photographers doing this, is getting into the influencer space. Like for example, just saw your cool campaign shot with Puma. Talk to us more about that. Like, how did you actually get into that space, and would you recommend, photographers to do that as an extra source of income, or what?
Yeah, I absolutely recommend it as an extra source of income. I would say at least like 2018, 2019, probably 40% of my income was influencer work, which is insane. But once I started getting more followers, I had, been working with a lot of celebrities. I had gotten this crazy suggested user shout out from Instagram and all this stuff. And after I hit like 100K, brands were just like, hey, can we send you stuff? Can we pay you to post about stuff? And at first I didn't really know how to navigate that. But now I work with a couple agencies that are absolutely awesome for social media influencer stuff. I've also just kind of figured out my rates and everything on my own. So if a brand emails me directly, I know how to like navigate that. But yeah, I would definitely recommend getting into it. I think there's this stigma among photographers that like posting pictures of yourself is like unprofessional and like vain and like you're a photographer, why are you posting pictures of yourself? And a lot of people have like separate accounts. They'll have like a personal account and a photography account. Right. And I've never had that. I just keep everything on one account. I'm like, you know what? You follow me and you get my life, you get my pictures, you get it all. You get what I ate for breakfast this morning, you get everything. And I don't know. I think it sets me apart a little bit. It's a little unique. I'm like a photographer who's actually also like a social media personality. But yeah, it's given me a lot of really cool opportunities. I do so much influencer stuff, worked with some really cool brands. And then from there, from brands reaching out to me for influencer stuff, I've been able to shoot for some of them and do like actual photo campaigns. So again, just taking whatever comes at me. And here we are.
So you don't need like to have 10 different IGs for like one for your concerts, one for
You
your
don't. I think some people like that really helps them compartmentalize, being like, okay, like I can be goofy and like dumb and whatever on this account, and I'm very professional on this account. I love walking the line between goofy, dumb, and professional just on one account. It's fun. You never know what you're gonna get. Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's like a more personal connection to just like have all my stuff in one place, and people who follow me can like know me whether they like it or not.
No, I think it definitely works, especially with what you mentioned, how, in this industry, people like to work with people who they know and who they like. And so
Yeah.
show people that, at least a glimpse of that.
Yeah. And yeah, if any of you guys are curious about like influencer stuff, I highly recommend getting into it, reaching out to brands you want to work with, whether it's in a photo capacity or they want you to post something or whatever. Cause yeah, it's, I just think social media is also such like a fleeting thing. And I'm always like, why would I not do this and collect the check while Instagram still exists? You know what I mean? Like someday it's probably not going to. And so having fun while it's here.
So do you like determine separate rates for that? Is that like a whole
Yeah.
different ballpark?
Pretty different ballpark. I've also noticed that a lot of brands have a way bigger budget when it comes to influencer stuff. Like what I make in one day at YouTube is like one Instagram post for Puma. And so, yeah, it's an interesting comparison. But there's a lot of websites that can help you do that. I work with a couple agencies. I'm signed with Collectively and Popular Pays, and there's one other, Waylar. And they just reach out to me whenever anything is like a good fit. Obviously I turn down stuff that's not on brand, but yeah.
I think that just kind of answers one of the questions in the chat, which is, does your brand need to match the brands you reach out to, or does it matter how many followers you have?
Now it does not really matter anymore how many followers you have. My younger sister is a micro influencer. She has like 2,600 followers, I think. Nothing crazy, but brands are constantly sending her stuff. She gets more PR than I do, and she's getting paid to post, and it's like insane. So yeah, I don't think it's like unattainable for anybody. I think it's more just like you have to figure out what fits your brand and what you want to do with your brand. She does like a lot of beauty stuff, and I do some hair care stuff, especially when I had way longer hair. I was, pushing all the hair care brands, but now I've kind of honed it into like, okay, I really like working with sneaker companies. I really like cool clothing companies, some hair care stuff still, but like I worked with Toyota. They gave me a car for 2 weeks. Just like random stuff, anything that would be fun for me and that I know I can make good content out of.
Amazing. Someone asked, do you do film for paid shoots, or do you stick to digital and do film more as like a behind the scenes vibe?
Yeah, so film is like now my like fun hobby. I take my film camera with me everywhere, but I strictly like take photos of my friends, take photos of us like being drunk, nights out at the bar. Like it is just strictly for fun. And I think that's what keeps photography really fun for me, is like when I'm on a paid shoot, it is digital. I am going in there, giant camera, whatever, coming home, editing all the photos. And then film, I shoot it for fun. I get the fun photos back, and it's great if they're good, and it's also fine if they're not, because there's no pressure on it for me. I know a lot of photographers really like actually shoot film as like their job. I could never. I think that's so stressful, because like what if it doesn't come out good? What if you lose the role? No, I couldn't. But that's just my like for fun behind the scenes thing, and I post them all on Instagram in little like albums, and yeah.
Speaking of fun, do you do any like personal projects, or do you even have time to do personal projects? Or is film the thing for you, for just to keep that fun and not like just all client work?
Yeah, no, I mean, I shoot with my friends like all the time. During COVID, not quite so much, just because that would be a lot of seeing people that I don't really need to be seeing all the time. But pre-COVID, yeah, I would just like get together with my friends. We'd drive somewhere, we'd shoot, or we'll all go on a trip together, take some pics, and it's strictly like just for fun, just a personal project. I like to keep photography as fun as I can, just because sometimes I really get in these flows of like work, 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 and I don't see my friends. I don't go out. I'm barely sleeping. I'm just working, and it gets really draining, and I never want to lose like my love for photography. So I try and do that as often as I can.
Amazing. And speaking of, someone asked, with that said, like Sarah says, how do you navigate the pressure or stress of a shoot that you are nervous about?
Oh, I don't really get super nervous for some. Well, there have been a couple times. Like the first time I ever shot for YouTube, I was so nervous because I was the only social photographer. I still am. They have photographers who shoot for other types of stuff, internal Google stuff and like Getty Images and whatever. But like my photos are the ones that are going on YouTube's Instagram. And I was like, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I usually just try and tell myself that like I have very bad imposter syndrome, and I constantly feel like I'm not supposed to be anywhere that I am. Like I'm always like, I'm still faking it till I make it, and nobody knows, and I'm the only one that knows. But I have to just like talk myself out of that and be like, listen, they hired you for a reason. Your portfolio is great. You can do this. You've done much harder stuff before. Yeah, it is really like hard to talk yourself out of that. I'm also very introverted. Like I'm not an extrovert, so to have to,
Really?
yeah. Oh, I love sitting at home by myself. I love watching TV, never talking to anybody ever. But to have to like turn that on for, oh, okay, cool. The bulb in my lamp just went out. That's great. There's no light in here. Sorry. But to have to talk myself out of that is learn to do. I'm like, okay, we have to turn on the people person energy for today and just make it happen.
I think it was Abir who asked in the chat, did you have any mentors along in your journey? And if so, how did you find them? Yeah.
I didn't have any like mentors, and I know a lot of people have reached out to me about like shadowing me or a mentor situation, and like I personally, again, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't teach you what to do. But I definitely had a lot of people along the way who would just like sit down and talk to me for like 20-30 minutes or give me a little advice here and there, and I think that was really helpful. Grady Brannon is an awesome music photographer. He also works with G-Eazy, and he was one of the photographers that I first saw him at a show, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to do what he's doing. And he has always been so kind and able to like talk me through stuff. And like, if I ever had a question, I could just hit him up and ask. There have also been a lot of other tour photographers, like when I first started touring and didn't know what to charge or what equipment to bring with me or something, they would just be like, oh yeah, you should bring this and this. And no, that's too low. You should ask for more. Just stuff like that. And then, yeah, always super appreciative though of all my photographer friends, because I think having a community of people who do what I do is also just really helpful. Like we can all just complain and they know exactly what I'm talking about, and we can give each other advice and feedback on our photos and stuff. And that's just been really helpful to have that like community for me.
That is so key, having your own tribe. There's a good question
Yeah.
in the chat, going back to your photos, specifically your concert photos. Bria asks, you know, it can easily look like the same. So what angles or moments do you look for during shows to make sure it's not the same image over and over and over again?
That is such a good question, because things do look exactly the same every single night. Lighting is the same, the set is the same, everything. I think when I was working with rappers and like male artists, it was a lot harder to make that look different, and that really like pushed me to get different angles every night. Obviously, when venues are different, stuff will still, you know, vary, and so that's kind of nice. But working with women, everyone always about the fits, the hair, the makeup every night. So it actually does look different every night because it looks like a different show or something. And I'll just try and kind of switch up the colors and stuff. But when they're in like different outfits and hair and makeup rather than like a man wearing the same white Hanes t-shirt every single day, it's a lot easier to work with.
Yes. And it's funny because I know you've transitioned to working with mainly female artists, but for those who are listening in the chat who haven't necessarily done that, who are trying to break into the music scene, how have you been able to manage, I guess, really just own the fact that, okay, I am a woman, and being able to just own your voice, speak up and advocate for yourself in these spaces, just throughout your journey?
Yeah, I actually did a clubhouse the other night with Adam Elmakias, who started this group called Sexism in the Music Industry. And it was me and a bunch of other female music photographers. And we just kind of aired our grievances and talked about what that is like, because it is such a unique experience. And there are so few women in touring because it's really seen as like a little like boys club type thing. And it's hard to break into that. And once you're in, you feel like you have to act a certain way. So you stay in everyone's good graces. I also am usually the only Black woman photographer around. I think I shot a YouTube event in, where were we? Atlanta or something. And there was another Black female music photographer. And I was like, hey girl, hey bestie. But yeah, it's not super common. And again, I think finding people who understand that experience has just been the most helpful for me. So I can be like, oh my God, like the guys did this today and it was so annoying. And someone's like, yeah, I get that. Yeah, and talking to all these girls the other night about their experiences touring in the music industry, just like the sexism that comes with that. Everybody just assumes that you're like somebody's girlfriend or like trying to sleep with the artist or like what, like, no, I don't like any of y'all. I'm here to take photos. Yeah. And so that's a whole other conversation.
Oh yeah,
But
that could be an hour long.
that could be an hour and a half. Yeah. But it is like a really unique experience, and finding other women who tour and who do what you want to do and connecting with them rather than competing with them is the best thing you can do.
And that brings up a great question from Adri asking, how do you handle requests from artists or management that you wouldn't feel comfortable working with or having attached to your name?
I just say, I don't think it's a good fit right now. Thank you. I've said that a couple times. There aren't a lot of people that I like flat out wouldn't work with, but just like some people, like some YouTubers and stuff who are like kind of problematic, who are like, oh, can we do a photo shoot? I'm like, oh, so sorry, I'm so busy. Like, you don't have to be like, I would literally never, but yeah.
Another question in chat, would you ever, since you do all the things and you are also teaching, would you ever teach anything relating to, I think it was how to charge, or how can someone sign up for any of your your classes or whatever that you have going on?
Yeah, I don't have any like classes per se, but since COVID, I've just been doing a bunch of like random like talks and stuff. Like I do Twitter Spaces here and there, which is like Twitter's version of Clubhouse. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, you can see when I'm live on there. Also though, highly recommend following Adam Elmakias, awesome music photographer. And he does a lot of like, not like teaching things so much, but like talks like amongst photographers, and you can tune in, you can listen, you can ask questions. And I think that's a great way to learn a lot of more practical advice. In terms of like how to charge for things, that is a very case-by-case basis. Kind of depends what the project is, how much experience you have, what your portfolio where you're located. Like there's so many things that go into creating a price sheet and stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you have a question about something you're trying to price and you want to like DM me, I could try and help.
Amazing. Thank you. And then for you, when you're thinking about like what is next, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I don't know. So with COVID, I kind of just like wake up every day and I'm like, what are we doing today? So kind of just hoping that stuff will go at least semi back to normal soon, and I can get back on some tours, go back to doing events with YouTube and stuff, And I love doing that. You know, my professional life pre-COVID was so fun for me. I was working all the time, and I love working, love my job. So I really miss it. Yeah, I don't know what I would say is next though, because I think that just kind of depends on how the world like bounces back after all of this. Yeah.
Is it hard to balance all the things? Like, what does that look like for you? What's self-care look like for you?
It's kind of hard to balance all the things. I don't know. Like before the pandemic, when I was living in Portland, I was maybe home for like 1 week a month.
Wow.
If that, I was traveling constantly. I was traveling all the time. But
Oh no.
oh, are we good?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good now.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I really like doing that. I like traveling and stuff. And so for me, that was just life. Now I just feel very bored and kind of unmotivated and stuff. And so I'm just hoping that'll all come back. Self-care though, I mean, I do my nails, I hang out, I do face masks, I'm chilling.
We have one more question in the chat, and we are coming up on time. So if you have any last minute burning questions, we'll try to squeeze it in. This is again from Sherry. She asked, do you have any thoughts about the Me Too movement and how to keep models safe during shoots, like especially in bikinis? I've seen a lot of stories surface about photographers, or is that only a male problem?
That is an awesome question. And it really upsets me to see all of those stories because I just hate that men, I hate that men, no, I hate that male photographers like take advantage of women under the guise of photography. They're like, oh, I'm going to give you a career and I'm going to make you a model and I'm going to this and that. And they're really just trying to take advantage of her. And I think that's so disgusting. I mean, all the models I work with are awesome. I try and make them feel as safe and as comfortable as possible. Also, a lot of the girls I shoot with are like, I'm so glad that you're like an awesome photographer, but you're a woman because I just feel more comfortable. And they've had like creepy experiences with guys, or, some guy will take their picture and never send them the photos. And then you're like, what are you doing with those?
Yeah.
Just like weird stuff. So I always encourage women to shoot with other women or shoot with guys that make them feel comfortable, but bring a friend to a shoot. If they ask you to do anything weird or like meet in like a sketchy location, like just don't go. It's not worth it. It really isn't. Yeah, again, that could be a whole other hour. I could go on and on about that, but there's so many good female photographers. I also know so many non-creepy men photographers.
Yes.
And I just hate that the creepy ones are still like getting bookings.
Someone asked, Abir says, can upcoming photographers email you with their work or just simple questions for tips and tricks?
I usually I don't mind getting the emails, but I really cannot reply to everyone because I get so many like that. And so I just feel bad if I can't get back to somebody. However, though, if you ever want to join like a live stream I'm doing or something like this with a Q&A, I am more than happy to like answer any questions. Yeah, but I usually just use my email for like business stuff at the moment, just because for a while I was fielding those requests and it got like too overwhelming. So
Totally understand. And one last question. If someone you want to shoot with follows you, how do you stay chill and not fangirl and sort of pivot it into an actual opportunity?
I would just obviously like stay cool. Don't freak out. Don't fangirl. But message them and be like, hey, like I'd love to shoot with you sometime. Like, let me know if you're interested. And just like a little smiling face, like very casual. Keep it cool. But they will probably reply. I mean, if they followed you, they're probably interested, right? In some regard.
Right.
So,
And then
yeah,
you can just
give it a
let the work
shot.
speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so any, last comments or just like anything, last parting advice you have for those who are listening?
I don't know. I always just tell people keep shooting, find your style, find your niche. It may not be what you think it's going to be at first. And you find that by like exploring different avenues of photography. But thank you guys so much for having me because this was really fun and I love doing stuff like this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nesrin. And thank you to all those who joined. Thanks to Lightroom, I will be giving away a Photoshop and Lightroom bundle to one of the participants in this chat. So you were here and I will reach out to you if you are selected. So thank you all so much. Again, this recording will be available. So if you need it, if you have friends who missed out, let them know that this recording is available to anyone who missed it. So thank you all so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, Nesrin, and everyone.
Yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day too.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.